Hello people of YouTube, welcome back to yet another video on our channel, Creative Readers, etc. The channel where we do creative things that sometimes involve reading, etc. I'm Cassandra, I'm one of the three people that run this channel. There's also Lexi and Maddie. In today's video, I'm going to be teaching you how to read my absolute favorite book series in the whole wide world, Ranger's Apprentice, and Brother Band, and The Royal Ranger, and The Early Years. So basically I'm teaching you how to read the entire Ranger's Apprentice franchise. I'm excited. To start off the video, I'm going to explain why I'm making this video, and that's because there are 24 different books in this franchise, and there's 4 different series essentially. There's a main series called Ranger's Apprentice, a companion series called Brother Band, and then there's kind of a prequel series called The Early Years, and then there's like an after series, but also kind of a new separate series called The Royal Ranger. So there's a lot to digest. Whenever you start to read this book series and go into the world, I'm going to explain 3 different ways that you can actually read this series. The first way is going to be the published order, and by the publishing dates, according to Australia, not the United States, because they were published way later in the United States compared to Australia. So that's one way to read it. Not highly recommended, but I thought I'd throw it out there. The second way that you can read it is kind of my recommended of chunks, so you can kind of just stick with, okay, all the Ranger's Apprentice series and then all the Brother Band, and I kind of explain what order you should read the different series in, and that's a simple breakdown if you're not wanting to get so invested into trying to get every book in the correct order and such. But then the third way is the way that I think you should read it, and Citizens of Aurelian over on Instagram, I'll leave her Instagram link down below in the description, but this is the way that she thinks that you should read it, and it's very chronologically for the most part, for you can avoid spoilers and kind of get details onto other things that are referenced in other books. So it's just one big amazing time, and this is the way that I'm actually going to reread the series when I do end up rereading the series. So I'm super excited. But when I was thinking it over in my head of how she had set it up, I was like, that actually makes a ton of sense. So I'm excited to reread the series in this particular order, but I am going to start with the first technique, which is to read them in published order. Alright, so let's go all the way back to 2004, and that is when the first Ranger's Apprentice book, The Ruins of Gorlan, was published. So this is book 1 of the entire series, and no matter what order or what technique you used, you will always read this book first. And this book follows Will on his adventures of becoming a ranger, and that's basically what the entire series is about, his adventure of becoming a fully fledged ranger, and then basically separate adventures throughout the kingdom. I'm not going to go too into depth on that because I'm just kind of making a video on ways you should maybe try to read it, but I could ramble on forever about this series, but I thought I would spare you and spare this video being hours long, because I would talk about the Ranger's Apprentice series for hours because it is my favorite series of all time. Anyway, moving on, now we're into 2005, and that is when books 2 and 3 were published. So there was book 2, Ranger's Apprentice, The Burning Bridge, and then book 3, Ranger's Apprentice, The Icebound Land. So those were both published in 2005. Moving on to 2006, we got another 2 Ranger's Apprentice books, and that was books 4 and 5. So book 4 was Ranger's Apprentice, The Battle for Scandia, and then book 5 was Ranger's Apprentice, The Sorcerer of the North. Continuing on in 2007, we have the same deal of 2 books published in 1 year, and that was book 6 and 7. Book 6 was Ranger's Apprentice, The Siege of Mackinac, and Ranger's Apprentice, Eric's Ransom. Moving into 2008, it was Ranger's Apprentice, The Kings of Clonmel, and then in 2009, and that was Ranger's Apprentice, Halt's Peril. 2010, we got book 10, and that was The Emperor of Naihoja, and that basically was the end of the main series. But then in 2011, we did get Ranger's Apprentice, The Lost Stories, which were a bunch of filler stories to kind of fill in the gaps of things that some readers were wondering, and other, not plot flaws essentially, but kind of filling in the gaps. And it's a really nice read, and it's a collection of 9 different stories. Also in 2011, we received the first Brother Band book. Now, Brother Band is about the Scandian race. So if you remember, book 4 was called Battle for Scandia. Now we get to actually dive into that race and those characters and learn about how they become a crew, essentially, because it's all about ships and kind of their adventures Not all on the sea, but for the most part it is. And do not be intimidated by these books, because I remember when I was gonna first pick them up, I got really intimidated because at the beginning there's a whole bunch of ship terms, and it's just, there's like 2 pages full of just ship terms that John Flanagan thought would be appropriate to add, which I totally agree with, because like I don't know what like starboard or whatnot meant, and now I do. And I didn't read this because I was so intimidated by all those terms, but honestly, once you start and get into the story, you understand what all these terms mean more, and the guide at the beginning is honestly just kind of a cool way to look back and go, what side was the starboard, if you're really into those super fine details and stuff like that. So I do encourage you to not be discouraged like I was when I first was going to pick up the Brother Band series. I don't think I ever mentioned the name, but the first Brother Band book was called The Outcasts, and that was 2011. Now moving on to 2012, we got the second Brother Band book, which was The Invaders. And the third Brother Band book which was called Brother Band The Hunters. In 2013, this was quite interesting because we got book 12 of the Ranged Apprentice series, which was called The Royal Ranger. However, later on, John Flanagan decided that he loved the character he created so much in that series that he wanted to continue on the series. So book 12 was retitled to A New Beginning and started the side series of The Royal Ranger. And yeah, that was out in 2013. I actually am an OG fan because I only have book 12. So don't mind the pop-up on the screen saying book 12 because that's the book I own, because you know, I'm an OG fan. In 2014, we continued on with 2 Brother Band books, and we got The Slaves of Socorro and Brother Band Scorpion Mountain. Then in 2015, we were now introduced to the early years duology. And this duology is basically, remember how I said that the main series was about Will becoming a fully fledged ranger? Well, he had a mentor, and his mentor's name was Halt. And now the early years is about Halt's earlier life, essentially. And it's such a fun read because you really grow attached to this character, but you don't get a super deep dive into his backstory and everything. So going back, you really get to learn about him and basically how he got into the Ranger Corps and such. And that was in 2015, and that was titled The Early Years, The Tournament at Gorlon. In 2016, we got Brother Band The Ghost Faces, and also in 2016, we got the second book in the Early Years series called The Battle at Hackham Heath, and this was the final book in the Early Years duology or series or whatnot, and that's because John Flanagan said it became way too complex to try to keep everything in chronological order as he was writing. But honestly, with these 2 books, you get so much content essentially, and it's so good, and it's such a good read too, because I know a lot of people are hesitant on going back to read because they don't want the character that they know from the Ranged Apprentice series to be changed in any way, and it's really not. It's just so interesting, so I do highly recommend checking it out. 2017 brought Brother Band Book 7, The Caldera. And then in 2018, this was when we got fantastic news that the Royal Ranger series was being continued, and this is when the Red Fox Clan was published, which is Book 2 of the Royal Ranger. And then in 2019, we got the Royal Ranger Book 3, The Battle at Arulian, and then we got Brother Band Book 8, The Return of the Timujai. And that is basically all the books that are released right now. We do have confirmed the Royal Ranger 4 and 5 that's coming out sometime, I think next year or this year or something like that. But that is the published order. I don't really recommend you read the series in this order, but I honestly thought I would just throw it in there. But now we're gonna move on to my simple breakdown recommendation. So if you don't want to weave back and forth between series, this is just going to be a simple order of how you should read the Ranged Apprentice franchise. Also in this breakdown, I'm going to kind of explain, I'm going to call them sub-stories because books 1 through 4 go together, but then books 5 and 6 are their own storyline as well. So there's like different adventures happen in each one, so I'm going to call them like sub-stories or mini-stories, whatever I end up calling them, I don't even know. But anyway, starting with the Ranged Apprentice series. You want to read books 1 through 4 because those are basically all one storyline, so 1 through 4, and then I recommend reading book 7. This is interesting though, because you would like, why not books 5 and 6? And that's because book 7 actually goes back in time to when before Will was a fully fledged ranger, and then 5 and 6 is about him being a fully fledged ranger. So I do recommend going 1, 2, 3, 4, 7 and then going to 5, 6, and 5 and 6 are their own little mini story as well. And then moving on to books 8 and 9, those two stories go together, and then book 10 is kind of on its own. And book 10 is almost one of the best just because it goes so deep into the different cultures of where they're at and the different land and everything and the politics. It's just so interesting, and you get a really, really epic fight scene and battle scene. It's just so good. So book 10 is all on its own, but it does not mean that it's not a good story just because it's one book. And then book 11 is the next book you want to read, and that is once again the 9 filler stories. This book is one of my favorite to pick up just because it just fills in the gaps, and you get to have like a little mini adventure back through the story just within 9 stories, and it's so good. So now you have completed all of the Ranger's Apprentice books, and now I recommend that you read the 2 books in the early years duology or series, whatever it's called. And that's just because even though it's not chronologically to go back and learn about the characters, I really think building the relationship with the main characters in the Ranger's Apprentice series and then going back to learn about their backstory is a good way to do it, just because it's not essential that you know about Halt before he's Will's mentor, but it's a nice thing to learn after the fact, and you just appreciate it a lot more. Next, I recommend reading the entirety of the Brother Band series other than book 8. So you want to go books 1 through 7, and there is reason for this. So you can just kind of read that through all in one chunk, and yeah, that's pretty much it. And then you move on to the Royal Ranger series, which is books 1 through 3, and then you go back to reading Brother Band book 8, and that's because in the Royal Ranger series they make reference to what happens in book 8. Sort of, it kind of like leads up to it. It's kind of hard to explain. And then after book 8 you want to read 4 and 5 of the Royal Ranger that's not yet released. Now, that was the simple breakdown, and it's just kind of taking the series in chunks. That is the simple breakdown, and now we're going to move on to the more complicated one for, the hardcore fans. It's just a very nice way to be able to see all the references, not get spoiled and everything, and just really dive into the Ranger's Apprentice world. And the more complicated way isn't really that much more complicated. It's just, you switch back and forth between series more than you do in the simple breakdown, but it's totally okay because it totally flows nice, and I'm so excited to explain this. Oh my gosh, I love the series so much. Okay, so to start off, you're gonna read books 1, 2, 3, 4, 7, 5, 6, 8, 9. All right, I'm gonna repeat that again. So you wanna go 1 through 4, which is pretty easy, right? But then you want to read book 7. I prefer to read book 7 before 5 and 6 because it flows so much nicer, and I always get stuck if I read book 7 after book 6. So I do recommend 1, 2, 3, 4, 7, and then 5, 6, and then 8 and 9. Now you're not going to read 10 yet. You're actually going to go and read the first 3 books of the Brother Band series. So 1, 2, 3 of the Brother Band series, and then you can go back to book 10 because they do make a reference to some characters in Brother Band. So it's kind of a nice little thing you can catch. And then you're going to go back and read book 11, which is the 9 filler stories that I mentioned, and then you're going to read the 2 early years books. So once again, you read 1, 2, 3 of the Brother Band, and then book 10 and 11 of Ranger's Apprentice, and now we're on to the early years books 1 and 2. Next, you're going to read Brother Band's book 4 through 7, so 4, 5, 6, 7 of Brother Band. Then you're going to go to the Royal Ranger series. You're going to read the first 3 of those because those are the only ones released. And then you're going to go back to the Brother Band series and read book 8. And then you're going to read books 4 and 5 of the Royal Ranger once they are released. So that's a more complicated breakdown. It keeps everything in chronological order mostly, and you get to see references that are made because characters do cross over from the series. And I think that's why I love Ranger's Apprentice so much, is because the characters are amazing. They are literally so easy to relate to and so easy to love and fall in love quickly with them. And it's not centered around relationships, but they're there. Because I know a mistake a lot of authors make is they want to have like the relationship thing happen, but then that becomes the sole focus and it loses a lot of people. But no, this series has it all. If you like the relationships, there's enough of that to basically pique your interest. If you like battle scenes, it's freaking amazing. If you like medieval stuff, like me, your heart will be filled, okay? It's incredible. And there's so much because you not only get to learn about Rangers' lives, but you get to learn about some Knights' lives, and then you get to learn about the Scandians and their crew and stuff. And then, you know, Rangers will cross over into the Brother Band series, and then the Brother Band characters will cross over into the Rangers Apprentice series. So you just get so much of the characters that you just end up falling in love with. And that's, I think, at the core of it, why I love Rangers Apprentice so much, is because the characters are amazing and you get so much more than just the main series. And there's these side characters that you wouldn't think are really important, but then they make cameos in the other series, and then you just love them even more because you get more backstory on them, and you get new characters and old characters interacting, and it's fantastic. So I think I've rambled on long enough, because those are the 3 different ways I recommend reading the Rangers Apprentice series. Now, if you do end up reading it, please do leave me a comment, message me on Instagram, tweet me on Twitter, I don't care, just let me know, okay? I love this series so much, and I love it so much that I'm actually going to be doing a giveaway. I'm going to be giving away the very first Rangers Apprentice book, brand new, to one of y'all, and all you have to do is subscribe to my channel and leave a comment down below. Let me know that you want to be entered for the chance to win the first Rangers Apprentice book. So that's literally all you have to do. You have to subscribe and comment down below anything. I don't really care. Just let me know that you want to be entered into the giveaway, and you'll be entered into the giveaway to win the very first Rangers Apprentice book. I'm so excited. This is gonna be fun. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, please do give it a like. I'm definitely gonna be doing more Rangers Apprentice content in the future. I just haven't, and I don't know why, because Rangers Apprentice is my heart and soul, okay? And do leave me a comment down below. Let me know what you thought of the video. Let me know if you're gonna pick up the series, and also to enter the giveaway or whatnot. And also consider subscribing to our channel. We post creative content such as bullet journal videos and speed art, bookish content such as book vlogs and book talks, and etc., which is whatever the heck we feel like posting at the time. Thank you once again for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye guys! Mm-hmm.